What's up guys, Nostalgia Grow is back here with another movie review, and just like many of you, this weekend I went out and I saw the Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I will say, full disclosure before I review this movie, I have seen all the movies. I haven't watched the TV series, any of the TV series, whether it's Daredevil or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever, and as a whole, I'm not that familiar with the comic book universe. I do know the characters. Just if you mention by name, I'd be like, yeah, I recognize that character. I recognize that character. I might be able to give a little background. But as far as comic book is concerned, I don't really know them. So when I view these movies, I view them just simply where they are in the films. I don't really care about the background. I just want to know how the characters and the storylines work in the films and not really compare it to the comic book. And with that being said, as a whole with the Marvel Universe, I'm not a big fan of the Marvel Universe, I'll be honest. The Iron Man films, I haven't really cared for any of them. I like Robert Downey Jr., the actor. I just don't care for him as Tony Stark. The Captain America films, I think, are probably the best ones, with my favorite Marvel film probably being the first Captain America. The Incredible Hulk film, like most people thought, and the Thor films I really think are just kind of a big budget box office waste of time. But the reason why I had a lot of interest in Age of Ultron is because I really did enjoy what Marvel did with the first Avengers. So I was really hoping for something that would be just awesome here for a follow-up, and I was excited about seeing the Scarlet Witch and Pietro and stuff like that, and how they incorporated everything. And I thought the trailers were really, really cool. Like, I mean, I was just hoping that this was going to be an awesome film. And I walked out of it thinking this was a waste of my time. Age of Ultron should have been retitled Age of Setup, because that's what this entire movie is it's nothing but a setup to all the other universes within Marvel that they have going on. And never did I really think that Ultron lived up to the billing of even being a bad guy. He was more of a nuisance. He wasn't, I mean, yeah, he created he attacked the city and all this blah, blah, blah. Try not to give too many spoilers in this review, but he just didn't do it for me, which was really, really sad, because the trailers, I gotta say, if there's one movie that I thought, like, wow, these trailers are just amazing, it was Age of Ultron. Those trailers, I think, just led it up so much hype. I was expecting just this huge smackdown, with Tony Stark and Ultron and all this stuff, and instead, I don't know. I was just really disappointed. First off, with the characters, none of them really have a good storyline. I mean, basically, your two main storylines here is that Hulk and Black Widow are an item now, which was kind of throwing me off a little bit, because I was like, well, didn't they kind of establish that Widow is with Captain America or has some feelings there? Like, I don't know. That's where I was a little lost on that. And it's been a while since I saw Winter Soldier, so maybe my mind wasn't quite right on how that all played out. And then on top of that, Tony Stark is like, he just wasn't the same character that we've known. He was more obsessed of like just creating this problem and then not solving the problem. He wanted to create it further, and I don't know, like, I guess I'm a little confused. Like, if anything, like, they in the confrontation with Thor, like, I'm trying to explain it, I'm trying to wrap my thoughts around it. I think that's even why this movie just didn't really work for me, is that they quickly dismissed any plot points that they brought up, and you're just supposed to forget that, oh, this happened, but whatever. For example, after Ultron is created, Thor attacks Stark, and Thor's mad, and he leaves, and he goes into this pool, and he sees some thoughts, and then he comes back, and then everything's cool. And like I said, and Stark, I mean, it's known that he creates Ultron, and yet nobody really gets mad at him for doing it. Like, it's just very brief that people are upset with Tony, but then when further in the movie, not to give other things away, but further in the movie, he has another choice of creating something, and he just does it without talking to everybody, and it ends up being good. But at the same time, it's like, come on, like, you didn't you learn from your mistakes? You don't understand what you're doing. And then with the whole Hulk and Black Widow and Captain America is just very blah the entire time. Like, basically he was there just so they had a joke, a running joke throughout the entire film about how he would get mad at you if you had bad language. Nick Fury shows up real briefly, which he was one of the few characters that actually worked. And Hawkeye, a lot of people were plotting the fact that Hawkeye got more screen time. And really, with Hawkeye, I felt, and maybe I'm reading into this too much, but I felt with Hawkeye, they were setting him up to get rid of him. Again, I don't want to give away too many spoilers for those who haven't seen it, but basically his role in this film is really just to kind of humanize the fact that he is not some superpowered guy. He's just a guy with a bow and arrow that's really good at that. And even at some point too, it gets a little ridiculous even with that perspective. So it was just, there's a lot of confusion going on and just quickly sweeping things under the rug. With the twins being there, they were angry and like were the bad guys for a brief moment, and then they just switched like that, and it was like, okay, no big deal. And that was disappointing because really they were almost more powerful than Ultron himself. And I would have loved to have seen more of a face-off with them, but instead they barely fight the Avengers, and then next thing you know, they're by their side. So that was disappointing as well. And yeah, it's, I guess trying to wrap my mind around it more and trying to explain the movie just leads me to be like, well, but then there was this problem with it, and then there's this problem with the storyline, and then there's this problem with this character. And really, I think there's a reason why Whedon is stepping away, and I think it's because he realized there's too many characters to balance, and he couldn't find a compelling story to tell out of it. With the first Avengers film, it was more about the fact that here's all these guys together for the first time. And that was exciting and that was fun. But now they've been together for a while. It's not as exciting anymore. Like they should have been able to take out Ultron with ease, but they didn't. So it was just kind of a middling movie that was really, like I said, it should have been called The Age of Setup, because everything was trying to set up everything else. Captain America and Tony Stark kind of bickering back and forth on things, clearly setting up Civil War. Hulk, the way with his character arc goes, it's clearly setting up the fact that, maybe a Planet Hulk will happen. Something's going to happen with Hulk that's going to lead into the other movies. Something's going to happen leading to that. Thor was really just there. He was just a muscle guy, and that was it. The only compelling characters on how the movie ended anyway was with the twins, which I didn't see that coming, and I'm glad it happened, because it finally kind of shows that these characters, there's more to them. There can be things that happen to them. So at least they kind of develop to another level, but at the same time quickly sweeping under the rug. And as much as people want to say that, Black Widow is a strong female figure, which she is, don't get me wrong, like she kicks butt, and her character arc so far, at least in this film, it just kind of strengthens a bit more. But then they threw it all away with Scarlet Witch, with just doing your typical, she's a scared girl, blah, 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 type approach. And yeah, that, like, again, it just didn't fully work for me. So, I mean, I'm not trying to give out too many spoilers with this movie, but really, it's just disappointing. It's really disappointing that they had this cool character in Ultron. They really could have did something with it, and instead they just turned it into a generic action flick. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, like, probably the best parts of the movie was when Stark and Hulk were duking it out. And that was, that was just more fun to see, and there's some good one-liners in there. I guess if there's one thing that Whedon still does well with this movie is that he knows when to put in a good one-liner. And they're all, very generic. They weren't much, but like it was just enough to make you laugh and realize like, okay, like, they're still having fun with this. But I'm starting to wonder if like maybe with what DC is doing, Marvel is starting to be like, okay, we are starting to get too much of a formula going here. We need to mix things up, and how do we do that? And I think this movie was maybe trying to springboard that, because like there is some dark elements. Like that's the one thing that I've liked about the Nolan Batman films, and what I liked about Man of Steel is that they are fairly dark in the sense of their storyline, their plot that they're trying to tell. And I think Marvel is starting to see that like there is an advantage to that. And with this movie, I think they're trying to kind of get towards that, but at the same time keep their playfulness that they've had in all their other films. But yeah, I don't think this was a great mix. It was really just more of a setup, and I'm not nearly excited as I was now about the Infinity Wars films, or really any of the upcoming Marvel films. Because I mean, Ant-Man. I mean, they had another trailer. They had a trailer in the front there, and I don't know if I can get behind Ant-Man. I mean, I understand the character, but at the same time, I think that it's just not going to work. So far, Paul Rudd just looks really wooden. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. And then, I mean, you got the Civil War might help redeem itself, but also seeing with how they dealt with all these characters in this movie, and now they're going to introduce Spider-Man as well into it, and I think it's starting to get a little too convoluted to fit, and maybe that's where Infinity Wars will correct that by having two-part movie to it. Because yeah, I guess the other character, Vision, like he's in the movie, but he's not. And actually, that's something that I could touch on without giving too much away. Is that like literally at the end of the film, with all the fighting that's going on, I was sitting there saying, I haven't seen this character in 5 minutes. Where are they? What happened to him? I thought everyone's like right there, but then you don't see him, and then they just quickly flash that like, oh yeah, no, he's still there. But like, as hyped up as everyone had Vision in this film, he just didn't do a whole lot either. I mean, he's very important to defeating Ultron, but at the same time, it was like, okay, was it necessary to introduce him? And yeah, so anyway, I guess as a whole, is it worth watching? Yeah, sure. If you're a Marvel fan, you're going to enjoy this film. You're probably going to be saying, oh, it's so awesome, Ro, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 which is maybe true. Like I said, like I enjoy the films as a whole, but like I'm not a big fan of them. And there's probably a lot of subplots and stuff like that I don't know, or stuff that happened in the comic book universe that like I don't know because I'm not familiar with it nearly as well as some other people. But at the same time, as a moviegoer and someone that has seen all the films, it was kind of a letdown. I mean, even with the opening sequence, like if there's one thing that this movie has, it's big visual special effects, but the opening sequence, having all the characters CGI'd, I mean, as much as we love CGI in our films now, the one thing they still haven't been able to do is to make a human person look and move like they're human. It doesn't work yet. It's not there. It's very, very close, but still not there. And the opening sequence was clearly just all CGI mayhem of all this stuff, and kind of took me out of it right away because it felt more like I was watching a cartoon than in a live action flick. But then once they kind of got past that point, things started rolling, and then I was back to like, okay, now this is more of what I expect. But anyway, kind of rambling on this one, but as a whole, like I said, like, I mean, I think like right now, when I looked at Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at like 75% rating, which I think is probably about on par. And like I said, it's even more of a convoluted plot than before, except this time they're not explaining it and they're trying to rush things. Ultron's not a big baddie like you expect him to be. And there's just all the characters, they're not the same characters from the previous films, and they don't have enough stuff to work with. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to watch this film, you're going to go watch it. This review is not going to sway you any other way. But at the very least, Marvel needs to start figuring things out here. I think this was not a good stepping stone for them into the future. I think this takes a step back for them, and it does have me even more concerned now about the likes of Ant-Man, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, all those characters, Doctor Strange. It makes me worry more and more that they're making these missteps and that all these other films for the next 5 years are just going to go downhill, and then we're going to quickly see Marvel, as fast as they rose up as being big blockbuster hits, quickly drive down. And honestly, it just makes me more excited to see what DC is doing with Batman versus Superman, because the more and more I see it, the more and more I think they get it. They understand what their characters are, and Marvel is starting to lose track of what made these characters fun, what made these movies cool, and instead they're kind of just kicking the tires here, ripping out generic films. So anyway, that's it. That's my review. I'd want to know what you guys think. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, let me know down below. And coming up here soon, I'm going to have a few more video game reviews, maybe some more movie reviews. We'll see. I might have a busy schedule. I might not. I'm hoping to check out the new Terminator film when it comes out, and then I'll be releasing another video here, because Terminator is another series that we'll see what happens with that one. But anyway, thanks a lot for tuning in, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.